Good evening. How's everybody?
Pretty good.
How are you?
Good. I'm great. Hope everybody is.
And
Well, I
staying
see
cool
I'm
in
right
this nice
on
weather.
time. Hope everybody's doing well this week. I'll dive right in because I don't want to hold y'all up. Y'all got a lot of stuff y'all want to cover tonight on our third. So we're at case study 3. We are normal 2. So let's look at our stars of the week. Rebecca, I had one on, we're at discussion board 6 this week. She had a good idea about taking pictures around the accident site for the bus. That's a good idea. And also that you might need to be involved in crowd control, trying to keep people back. I like that Lillian talked to her principal about this because there's a lot of policies, and Michelle did an excellent job. She followed up on all of those policies in and around not just an accident, but all the different policies. I'm telling you now, I wouldn't be taking field trips unless I just had to. As many policies and as many hoops as you got to go through, and the liability. That's a tough one. But if you want to read a good one on all the related policies for field trips, you should look at Michelle. She did a really good job. And then finally on that one, David pointed out, and we all know this, but we sometimes don't think about this, that if we've got special needs kids on these field trips, they require special attention. And we better make sure that we understand that before we go and leave with special needs kids, that we might have to have extra people, extra crowd control. We might have to have some other vehicles going with us to try to provide additional help for those kids. And so those were all good points this week on our discussion board 6 about if you got into a fender bender on an activity bus. Again, you got to call the police first. You're not a medical doctor. Need to get emergency. I don't care how minor you think it is, you better get people on the site quickly. All right, so this week was our case study. We are normal 2. Now remember, that they are gay is immaterial to the case. They are a federally protected class. We could have substituted any of those we've learned about in our special POPs audits that we did earlier this semester. Any of those federally protected classes have additional rights other than just equal protection under the law of the 14th Amendment. They might have PL 94-142, exceptional children's law. They might have Title IX for their gender identity and sexual orientation. There might be a number of laws that go along, but anytime you have a federally protected class, understand that there's more for you to know and more for you to follow up on. This case touched on heckler's veto. I had one turn it in earlier today and did an excellent job on the front slide of talking about heckler's veto. Basically, the loudest and stupidest get their way, regardless of the law. Talked about FERPA. You can't be sharing. You can't be talking about other people's kids. Veiled threats. The notion here is, if somebody's threatening these kids, you need to punish them, not the kids. That's the notion here. So without further ado, who hadn't been first yet on our weekly forays into our case study? Somebody that hadn't been first yet, jump right in there. Mandy, go. I saw Mandy's hand go up.
Oh, first. Wait. I'm sorry, Dr. Lamb. Can I go first today? I have a family emergency.
Okay now.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go. I'm waiting. Go.
Okay. All right.
Brenda, you want me to share?
Yeah, because apparently it's stuck. I don't know if my nerves are. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we are presenting case study 3. These are our team members. Okay, here we're going to address the key factors. So our first person to go.
It's me.
All right, so just a quick recap about case study 3 is that Jimmy and Willie are in a relationship. This was indicated by personal display of affection at school, caught by several different students. And then the principal ended up receiving complaints from parents, such as phone calls, petitions. They had over 100 signatures to get them, I guess, expelled, whatever have you, punished, to hide it. They also wanted them to limit their exposure or influence on other students. They indicated that the attendance of the boys at the prom was an infringement of the rights of other students, of their students. And then also in an effort to prevent bullying, she met with Jimmy, Willie, and their parents. And then Mary Lou urged the students not to attend the prom, and asked them to keep their relationship a secret and try and disclose that after they graduated. And then just some key factors that we're going to discuss as well is a veiled threat and what that means. And basically that is a threat that isn't directly stated, but it's implied using like euphemisms and different language and just kind of like poking and prodding them just to make them do what you want them to do. And then another key factor was the heckler's veto. What does it mean? And basically that is when a situation occurs and one party does not agree with the other party's message, or they ultimately trigger events where the speaker was silent. It's basically they're looking stupid and just trying to get them to stop what they're doing. So I put the example of a heckler can be so disruptive that a speech is canceled. And this potentially violates the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. And then we also wanted to address FERPA, which is that Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And it protects students from disclosure of personally identifiable information from the education records. Otherwise, the school will be in violation of the students' rights at this point. And that feeds into question number 1. Would you consider Mary's comments a veiled threat? So after examining Mary's comments, sorry, I have stuff in the oven. After examining Mary's comments, we strongly believe that her comments were in fact a veiled threat. And the reason we feel that is because she urged the students to disclose their affections in a public manner, and then also urged Jimmy and Willie's parents to speak sense to their children, like talking them out of it. And then also Mary violates the students' First Amendment rights of freedom of speech again, which is why I want to put that in there, as she wanted to restrict them from attending the prom due to their sexual orientation. So I'll kick it over to you.
Brenda
Okay,
is
can you
muted.
hear me? Okay.
Now we can.
All right. So what are Mary's responsibilities under the law? Okay, well, that first bullet we discussed on waiting to after graduation to reveal the student's relationship. For example, host a diversity day to spread awareness of various topics. As a principal, it is her responsibility to make sure the boys are safe and that they receive a basic education like the other students. The principal can ensure that all rights and protections are adhered to under the law, Tinker versus Des Moines. And our last bullet, it says, do not violate Title IV. As a leadership at the school cannot keep students from school-related activities due to their sexual orientation. And we know that Title IV protections have been extended. It prevents discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. This means that educational institutions receiving funding must ensure that students are not discriminated against because of their sexual orientation or gender identity.
That's Title IX, Miss Brenda.
I'm Title IX. I'm sorry. I need glasses. I said 4 instead of 4 instead of 9. My bad. Sorry. Okay, moving on to the next slide.
Okay. Question number 3 is, how should Mary Lou respond to the concerns of Jerry and Cindy Hudson? The first bullet is she should focus on following the school policy and explain that she is unable to discuss other students. Second is she should also share the legal ramifications and how it impacts the school and students. And third, report any all threats to the district and the school resource officer.
Um, question 4, should Mary Lou allow Willie and Jimmy to attend prom as a couple? The principal has an obligation to protect the rights of all students and treat them fairly. Therefore, she should have allowed both gentlemen to attend prom per Title IX. We can't deny or limit students the ability to participate in or benefit from school-related activities or events. Whether it be just social or academic, school district, schools, or and ultimately can be sued for discrimination.
Okay, we're moving on to the next slide.
How would we minimize bullying and cyberbullying? Making all stakeholders aware of the bullying policy located in the staff, parent, and student handbook. The student handbook states the PDA policy and the consequences. Educating students about the school's code of conduct. Develop a culture of inclusion at the school. For example, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, be nice. Engage students and parents regarding bullying and prevention, which is, for example, digital citizenship, SELs, celebrating diversity through events, and also the main important one should have been to the top is actually staff training.
All right, excellent. All right. When the principal didn't stop the PDAs between Jimmy and Willie, what did we learn last week that that's called? Antecedent behaviors. The little things become the big things. This got completely out of control. Now, could you just stop Jimmy and Willie and let boys and girls continue to display affection? No, you would have to enforce it on everybody. And so even though if we stopped Jimmy and Willie, we'd have to make sure we were stopping the boys and girls too. So that's why a lot of times schools don't address it with anybody. And this leads to things like this. It leads to sexual infractions of all kinds. This is a perfect example of the little things become the big things. Antecedent behaviors, you need to remember that. And when you become principal, you need to talk to your assistant principals about this on a regular basis at your weekly meetings. Be proactive, see the little things going on. This is how we prevent the big stuff from happening to us. I used to, I carry a bigger one now. It's the age thing. But I used to carry a smaller pad in my pocket, and I would buy them and give them to the APs. I need you, when you come to work every day, to have a list, a priority list of things that you need to do, kind of like your lesson plan, so that you don't get sidetracked. However, I need for you to know that when some kids are going to make themselves your priority today, you don't need to ignore the little things and let them become the big things. Have an agenda, but be flexible. Again, you must address those little things. Would you call your resource officer in on Cindy and Jerry Hudson making threats that they were making toward these kids?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a duty or an obligation to do that? Aren't you a responsible person for reporting? We learned about that last week as well. You are a responsible person. What does that mean? If you witness a crime or get reported of a crime comes to you, you have to report it to authorities, don't you? I would say that you would need to contact the resource officer about these people, about the threats that they've made in your presence, about these kids. You can't just assume that they're just blowing off steam, that they're just talking big. Not nowadays. You just don't know what's going to happen next. So the idea here is antecedent behaviors. The little things got completely out of control. 2 boys displaying affection, didn't get stopped, got out into the community and just went crazy. Parents came in making threats, wanting to talk about other people's children. Can't do it. FERPA. Principal went the wrong direction based on her own convictions. I mean, telling Jimmy and Willie to wait to be gay would be like telling me to wait to be old. I have no control over that. You know, I can't. That you can be old next week or next month. You can't be old now. I mean, that makes just as much sense as telling kids not to be gay until after graduation. And yes, what she said was a veil threat. Excellent work, by the way. I like that you hit all the points. Very good. Everybody, soft golf clap here. Excellent job. All right, who's our next group? So y'all are getting better and better. Better and better every time.
My group want to go?
Mandy's going. Go, Mandy, go.
Yep, Sparkle, are you going to present?
Mandy, you on me? Oh, were you talking or Melissa? Oh, this is Chris.
I think Kristen's doing the summary slide.
There she go.
Okay, so I'm just going to give like a brief rundown about the case study. It happened to be at a school where two young men started showing their affection for each other, and around the school, it got out in the community. The principal, Mary Lou, got some backlash of the behavior at school. She spoke with the kids, asking them to like refrain from showing their affection until after graduation. The kids wanted to like do like a group of organization to like educate the population about LGBTQ community, to get the kids to understand that they have feelings and stuff like that. She kind of pushed that off, which violated the First Amendment. So the kids' parents had some things to say about that.
Would you consider Mary Lou's comments a veiled threat? I know you just said you thought it was, but I didn't think it was a veiled threat, because from the definition of it's an ambiguous phrase that's intended to incite fear. I don't feel that she was being malicious or that was her intention. I believe she was being an administrator, and her intentions were to protect the safety and order of her school building. I kind of feel like before saying anything to anybody, because of the scenario situation, she really should have reached out to a superintendent or a school district member or board attorney before she communicated the way she did. But Jimmy and Willie
that's why it would be considered a veiled threat. She did this on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you decide to do this on your own, and you address the victim and not the perpetrator, the people making that are saying that bad things are going to happen to them, if you go to court. But I agree. What you would think normally that this wouldn't be a veiled threat. If she had gotten that support, if she had contacted that attorney,
okay,
and had gotten this as as a cautionary thing, then you're exactly right. In the role of an administrator, had she done that, would not have been a veiled threat. Excellent catch there, Melissa. Excellent. It would not have been a veiled threat if she had contacted the superintendent, her area superintendent, the attorney, and they had and said, relay the fears that we have to them. It wouldn't have been, but on her own,
it was.
Unfortunately, that's just like if you take a knife off of a kid and you don't have the police with you, and you take it as a school administrator with the doing the search with the police present, where you can hand it over to them, you're now in possession of a weapon on school grounds. I know that sounds crazy,
right?
But you've got to be acting in an official capacity. If she went to court the other side would argue and more than likely win that she was acting in a personal rather than professional capacity. But
Okay.
Melissa just made an important distinction. If you're acting in a professional capacity, it would not be ruled a veil threat, but unfortunately she wasn't.
Gotcha. And then I just went into Jimmy and Willie are protected under the First Amendment for the rights of free speech, Fifth and 14th Amendments for equal protection under the law, the Equal Access Act of 1894, providing equal access to extracurricular student clubs, including LGBT plus issues. And then Title IX prohibits schools or school officials from treating students or families difference based on sexual orientation and gender identity.
Mary Lou's responsibilities under the law include that she has she must ensure a safe school environment. She must ensure that if other non-curricular clubs exist, that any student may form a non-curricular club, including the Gay Straight Alliance. If there's a rule in place against PDA, she must enforce that with any and all students. And her last response, or one of her responsibilities, is that she must allow Jimmy and Willie to attend any high school dance, including prom, and that comes from Frick versus Lynch. The heckler's veto. It takes away the rights of the speaker and it gives greater power to anyone who may be offended by the speech. The implications of this is that the administrators have to decide if the action or the speech is the fault of the speaker or those who are actually creating the disruption.
All right. How should Mary Lou respond to the concern of Jerry and Cindy Hudson? First, active listening and acknowledgement. By listening carefully to Jerry and Cindy's concerns without interrupting, you can acknowledge their feelings. I understand you have concerns about this matter. However, thank you for bringing it to my attention. Clarify some school policies. Explain the school policy on student behavior and relationships that you have in your handbooks on some different things. Inside, have some guidelines on public display of affections, which are the same for all students, not just because of their orientation. Promote inclusivity and respect. Highlight the school's commitment to creating inclusive. We're dedicated to ensuring every student feels safe. Make sure there's no discrimination or harassment based on sexual orientation, that it will not be tolerated. Addressing specific concerns. If there is any concerns, address fairly. If you see any other behaviors, again, go back to your school policies. Educate, approach. I thought I put that on there, but I didn't. Offers to provide resources on education, diversity, and inclusion for both students and parents. Follow up to ensure that their concerns were monitored and addressed. Thank them for the open communication. However, I think she just should have went about it just a little bit different and make sure like you always go through your guidelines and not, I guess sometimes even as a teacher it's hard, but like you can't put your personal beliefs on things. You really have to go with the law. Sorry. Some education amendments of 1972. I just found some laws that kind of talked about this, would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex in any education program or activity, receiving federal law financial assistance, while traditionally focused on gender discrimination. The Equal Access Act in 1984 requires that public secondary schools provide equal access to extracurricular clubs. This law has been used to support the rights of students to form LGBTQ and support groups and alliances. And Every Student Succeed Act, the 2015, replaced the No Child Left Behind Act and included provision to improve educational equity for disadvantaged students, including LGBTQ. I didn't know this, so this was something that I looked up. And it encouraged states to adopt any anti-bullying policies and supports the collection of data on bullying and harassment.
Okay, so this would have been Luann, but Leanne's out sick today. Should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom as a couple? There's no should about it. Legally, they have equal protection under the law and therefore equal right to attend the prom. Mary Lou's responsibility is to provide a safe prom that is inclusive for all of the students. Hudson's threat to boycott and the signatures of the petitions oppose the equal rights afforded all students and do not constitute a substantial disruption under Tinker versus Des Moines. This is in 1969. The Tinker test is any substantial disruption, which means to use to assess whether a student's First Amendment rights were violated by the school's effort to prevent the disturbance, and is the disturbance going to ruin the event. Petitions and a boycott were not going to, so therefore prom was going to go on as held and the boys would be able to attend.
Thank you. That was our presentation.
I want to talk a couple. You know that North and South Carolina both have anti-bullying laws, and so we've already discussed those. They're in that our handbook, our disciplinary data handbook. Let me quickly share my screen.
Okay, out. I don't have anybody. I don't have anything.
Okay, here we go. Let me move this out of the way. Now, what Melissa was talking about when we're talking about, let me get that out of the way. When we're talking about veil threats, there's two different ones here. Remember, to make accurate reports to the superintendent. Now, if you've done that and you're acting in direction of that, it would not be a veil threat. Remember, we got that one, and then we got this one down here to report acts to law enforcement and the superintendent. That's if crime or violence has occurred. And so in a case like this, if you determine that what Jimmy, Cindy, and Jerry Hudson did, you'd report it to law enforcement and the superintendent. You would definitely be involved with the superintendent if this was brought to your doorstep. And if you were acting in that capacity, it wouldn't be. But from the case study, we know that the principal did not follow through on what the law said. One of the reasons why you follow through, it gives you protections if you follow through and do the things that you're supposed to do. And so in this case, unfortunately for Mary Lou, she was out there in the wind. She had not reported it to the superintendent. And so she's going to be on her own when you go to court, and they're going to find that that's a veil threat. All right, let's talk about, that's enough of that. Let's talk about the Day of Diversity and the clubs and those kinds of things. Let's talk about that for a minute. All right, you could have a diversity day. Should you organize anything out around the flagpole like prayer? No, but if the students wanted to organize it, that'd be okay, right? During the day, as long as they came back to class. If they didn't come back to class, it'd be like anybody not coming back to class. It'd be, tardy or skipping or whatever. Sparkle, you've got a question on that?
Yes, it's kind of like about this. So we're year round, so we're starting school this week, and we are the biggest school in the district. And so we have a transgender kindergartner who was born a female, but now is a male. And we had this incident come up about bathrooms. As a principal, like, what do we do? Because we already have parents, so this is like a big school, so parents are already on it. They want them to use a specific bathroom. As a principal, like, what do you do in this
You
situation?
just designate, they use the staff bathroom. I had that all the time. And, I had unisex bathrooms in the high school when I was in principal in Charlotte back in the 90s. Let me say that again. We had some unisex bathrooms back in the 90s. We had, I don't know, I don't want to misspeak. My wife's here somewhere. She could probably be a better gauge than me. But I don't know, 70, 80 kids gay in the prom, dressed one way or the other. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter. I mean, I don't know. I'm not understanding. I've lived longer. I've outlived, the era. I never thought we'd be going back like we're going back now. We didn't have a problem with this in the 90s. Had a lot of kids that were transgender or gay or, cross-dressed. We called it cross-dressing rather than being transgender back then. Had a lot of kids like that. A lot. In a large urban area with 3,000 kids, you have a lot. And some of the communities that we're in were some of the more, shall we say, anybody knows, anything about the large cities, you always have like art districts in the bigger towns. We had a couple of those. And so we're going to have more gay kids. Wasn't a big problem. We had bathrooms set up for that. Wasn't a big deal. It's only a problem if you want it to be a problem. And that's the problem now, is people want it to be a problem. It's become a political issue rather than just how do we fix this and move on kind of thing. Melissa?
Oh, I was just going to add, gosh, it was probably at least 6-7 years ago when I was teaching in Charlotte. Immigration was a big ticket issue, and students were going through, whether documented, undocumented,
Yeah.
they were being picked up at bus stops and taken home, and parents are then asked for identification, and so it was going on in our school, and so there is our school students wanted to organize walkouts because they had seen that was the thing, that there were a lot of walkouts going on, and what they did is they created a petition and took it to our administration, and they were allowed to organize a walkout for anybody who wanted to participate. They took their flags.
Yeah.
They gave speeches, and then they walked back in. They were given the time they could go out. They were given like this 30 minutes of time after lunch. They organized it, they did it, and then they came back in. And it's one of the things that I think as part of that school I was most proud of, is that the students were allowed to do it. They let it, and then they went back in and the day went on.
Right. Exactly. It doesn't have to be a thing unless you, but see, some people want it to be a thing. That's their political agenda. They want this to be a problem. It doesn't have to be. We can't get down that road, I can tell you. So now the question is this: who am I going to pick on tonight? I'll pick on Mandy that was in that group. All right, Mandy, here's the pop quiz for tonight.
Oh, gosh.
The students want to form a club. That's one of the things they said they wanted to do. Now we have all these other clubs like Key Club and Marketing Club and DECA. We have all these other clubs. Would you let the kids form a club?
As long as it's non-curricular,
Yeah.
they can form any club that they want.
Yeah. All right. Now, one of the rules for clubs is they have to have a faculty sponsor. If nobody volunteered to be their faculty sponsor, would you assign somebody to do that on your supervision schedule? Remember, we've got 3 schedules that we worked on this semester: a master schedule, a duty roster, and a supervision schedule. That supervision schedule that's what we're talking about. Do you have a club? That would be your after school supervision. You got to be there with them. They can't meet on their own. Would you assign somebody, if nobody volunteered, would you assign one of your faculty members to be their sponsor?
Yes, I would.
Yes, you would have to. Legally, you'd be negligent if you did. You can't let them meet on their own. You most certainly would assign somebody that would be their on their supervision duty on the supervision schedule. Yes, you would have to do that. Yes, you must let the kids form their club, and if they can't find a sponsor on their own, then you would have to assign somebody to do that. That would be the law. I think we've covered everything on that on Assembly Diversity Day. I think everybody's pretty clear on that. School club, yes. Assign faculty to cover it for supervision, absolutely. Otherwise, you'd be negligent. We do have anti-bullying laws on the docket in both states, so yes. This one is pretty clear. But back to Melissa's point, if you don't report this up the line like you're supposed to, you're out there on your own. That's a nonfeasance. You had a duty to act to inform the superintendent of this, and probably gotten the board attorney and some other people involved. But since you didn't do that, and you started when you start trying to handle stuff in-house, folks, it always goes wrong. You're always going to get in legal trouble when you start trying to handle things in-house. We have a student who says that I've heard this story a lot of different times about the kid that identifies as a cat.
Letter, yes, it's in my district. She's a middle schooler.
I've heard
Um,
this from several different sources. This is one of those anomalies that, this would need to be dealt with on an individual basis. It's hard to make a blanket policy. Can't have a policy for every anomaly. Everybody knows what an anomaly or an outlier is. But in cases like this, it would be fairly easy to address this behavior. According to what your district wants to do. I mean, you could address it either way, tell them no, or you could accommodate them. Cats are not a federally protected class. So you could handle this one either way that you wanted to do it. Remember, we're talking about federally protected classes here. Cats are not one of those, so we wouldn't have to accommodate a sandbox for this kid. That's not, again, and that's why we make sure, as I reminded you tonight before we started, this is not really about being gay. This is about federally protected classes of any kind. That's the overarching theory here, is there are special laws and additional laws and policies for federally protected classes. That's what we're trying to learn here, and things that go with them. This one doesn't fit into that category. You could handle this pretty much any way you chose to do it. All right, we got another group ready to go.
Yeah, we're ready.
All righty.
Am I sharing, Michelle?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so the case study overview, Jimmy and Willie were in a relationship. They were displaying public affection and refused to stop. Student and parent reactions were not pleasant. The two were going to be each other's date for the prom. The principal received a phone call from the Hudsons where they demanded that she act against the boys or they would lead a boycott of the school. They already had petitions with over 100 signatures on it. The students were also petitioning and wanted to cancel the prom if they were allowed to attend together. Mary Lou met with the boys and their parents and explained how it was a disruption and she felt that they could be in danger, that they should wait on their relationship until after graduation. Mary Lou then received an email that stated that she had made a veiled threat that infringed against their First Amendment rights. The boys then met with her to inform her that they wished to have a day of diversity and a day of silence to raise awareness. They also voiced that they had plans to form a gay-straight alliance as a club.
All right. So we looked up our definition of what that veiled threat was. And as the other group said, veiled threat is a threat that isn't directly stated, but is implied. So we looked at the evidence to help us determine if it was a veiled threat. So from the text, Mary Lou met with the boys. The students had that. She said if they planned to go to the prom together, it'd be disruptive, it might cause harm. So really hinting at some underlining things. Parents were asked to speak sense, understand danger, end the relationship. So we were kind of in the same thought where Melissa was sharing earlier that the comment was not a veiled threat. Mary Lou, she met with the boys and it seemed like she was genuine about it. She was sharing their concerns and her fears. It was very informational. The safety, her mindset was the safety of all of our students. And we feel like she had well-intended thoughts. Of course, we know she didn't follow that proper protocol. So as you said, she's acting alone and not within the sense of the school system. So, and also that Mary Lou, she's not the one that is intending to carry out those said threats. She is just being informational for the boys and their families. All right, team, who has the slide? And if you're talking, you're probably muted. Oops,
Oh, I'm just talking to myself over here, guys.
there we go.
There we go. Hello, everyone. So, what are Mary Lou's responsibilities under the law? Under the law, she is legally obligated and morally obligated to make every effort to respond and prevent any acts of bullying or harassment against the student. So, failure to do so actually violates civil rights laws. And within that, again, she did not actually fulfill her duties as an administrator. It also violates Title IX civil rights law, which was part of the Education Amendment from 1972, and prohibits sexual-based discrimination in any school or educational program receiving federal funding. And there's an array of different types of discrimination that are sex-based. This one falls specifically under sexual orientation or preference as far as mate per se. 14th Amendment violation as well, equal protection and due process clauses. The 14th Amendment supports the First Amendment that ensures that state-run schools, public schools, uphold students' rights for First Amendment, and also due process when it comes to that 14th Amendment. So, did she follow the proper procedure? No. In addition to that, was this something that she should have actually allowed a parent to sway her in her job as an administrator to say, we're not going to allow this student to do this for our purposes. We don't feel it's right. So again, a lot of laws were broken here. And again, we like room, board, a roof over our head, and food on our table. So she handled the situation incorrectly, and there were a lot of mistakes made on her part, even though she may have had good intentions.
How should Mary Lou respond to the concerns of Jerry and Sydney Hudson? Just like all of the other groups have talked about, her following the school policy and explaining to them that she can't discuss other students, reporting all threats to the district and the school resource officer, and all of that will fall under the Equal Access Act. So schools may not deny equal access to or discriminate against any groups of students who may seek to conduct a meeting of the basis of religious, political, philosophical, or other content of the speech. A school may not deny a group like the Gay Straight Alliance to meet because other parents, teachers, students, community members, or other administrators may protest. Unpopularity of views is no reason to deny student speech, as noted in a 1969 landmark students' right case. And we look at the heckler's veto, which is when students exercise their First Amendment right, the government is not allowed to censor them just because others do not like what is being conveyed.
All right, so should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom as a couple? Absolutely. We just discussed all of the laws and reasons why, mainly because, as Dr. Lamb mentioned, Willie and Jimmy fall under a protected class of students that has all of these rules and laws in place so that they get the same fair, equal treatment that everybody else does. So we cannot unfairly deny the student any opportunity to participate in any extracurricular activities simply based on their sexual orientation or how they decide to present themselves based on their gender. So it is Mary Lou's responsibility to create a plan that's going to protect Jimmy and Willie's rights and to provide a safe environment so that they are able to go to the prom. And that falls under, again, Tinker versus Desmond from 1969, in which we want to make sure that we are not punishing Willie and Jimmy for being who they are, but we are actually focusing more on those who are making the threats or have those opposing views.
All right, so just some couple takeaways that we had. Of course, we've already talked about it. Where both Jimmy and Willie both fall under Title IX, which, and of course, we know that they are a federal protected class of children. The school must make sure that they're following all of the laws that are put into place. And just some wonders or some things that we thought about while we were discussing this case. Does the school or district have any policies to prevent public displays of affection? And did the families and or students sign a code of conduct agreeing to this policy at the beginning of the school year when their students were registered? And I believe that is it.
Why do we have federally protected classes? Why do we have those? Why do we have to have those? I guess is the real question. Is why do we have to have federally protected classes? Well, this case study is a perfect example of that. If we didn't, the loudest and the stupidest would always be in charge. That's why we have
those boys would not have been going to prom.
That is correct. That is exactly right. The loudest and stupidest. Now, I can tell you, as somebody who did not go to school with exceptional children, if we left it up to the individual places to do that, none of them got to go to school. Now, there was a couple in my high school. They helped the custodian. They mopped and swept. And then they had 4 or 5 that came in at lunchtime and cleaned up the tables. They didn't go to school. We don't, we can't depend on folks in society to do the right thing all the time. That's why we have to have federally protected classes. I hate that. I wish we were better people than that, but we're just not. That's just the truth. That's just the truth, unfortunately. My law and policy class at the doctoral level, we spent nearly all day last Saturday talking about what happened after Brown. Modern schooling started in 54. Did the same thing with y'all. We just didn't go in as depth as we did. We didn't do anything for 11 years until civil rights was passed. And we had to have federal troops to do that. That's what we're talking about here, folks. That's just so people with, different skin tones could go to school at the same place. So the notion here is people don't care if it's the law. People don't care if it's the right thing. They only care about what their political agenda is. They're only involved in their belief system, their personal or political truth. Objective truth has nothing to do with them. So you can't depend on parents in your community to be rational, sane. You can't depend on them to be reasonable or rational, or look to do to give everybody an opportunity. They want what they want, period. And you hate it, but you have to go due process immediately. You have to respond to the law. You have to call the superintendent. They make threats. You got to call the resource officer. You have to sign teachers to cover the club, even some of them don't want. You got to do the right thing, because people will not volunteer to do the right thing anymore. That is not part of it. That is not part of it. Bill, is your group, or y'all last tonight?
Yeah, we're ready.
Get after it then. Let's go.
All right, so looking at the response, we looked at this case, we decided it was a veiled threat, but I was also thinking whether or not it was a warning. And based on what I've heard tonight, I realize now why it is a veiled threat. That but when she said it would subject them to possible harm from class. I personally didn't feel at first that she was making a threat. I think she was just trying to look out in her best interest for the kids to protect them. But
Can I
Um,
stop you just 1 second right there? I want to
Yeah.
make this point. I should have made it earlier. If we went to court, first thing the attorney for Jimmy and Willie's parents would say, did you have knowledge of somebody that threatened these children? And if you said yes, they would say, well, why didn't you punish them rather than attempting to punish my child? And if you didn't have specific knowledge, why were you threatening my child? So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't on that by making those statements. And that's another litmus test for a veiled threat. If you had direct knowledge and didn't punish the people who actually threatened the kids, that's not good. But if you didn't have direct knowledge, but you threatened them anyway under the guise, I'm just looking out for you, without any specific knowledge of that, that would fall under the definition of a veiled threat. So I wanted to make sure that we understood that point. All right, continue, Bill. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Oh, that's fine. So like I said, when I was looking at it, and I looked at it, was she looking out for Jimmy or Willie, or was she using the voices of the other students to invoke her personal beliefs? So, like, I think she thought that by saying this, she can get her point across. And, but like I said, like you just said, it is a veiled threat. But I was also thinking, was she using the other students to do her dirty work and using them as a scapegoat and trying to, or was she just acting morally for the best interest? And like I said, either point is moot if it went to court, because if she knew about it,
Yeah.
or even if she made it up, and that's even worse if she made it up, that would definitely be veiled threat. So I mean, like you said, one is 6 1 half dozen another. You're gonna get nailed.
That's exactly it. You're hosed either way when you go to court.
Yeah.
That's the point to make here. That's the learning piece of that is that either way, it's going to go very bad for you in court.
Well, like, yeah, because like if you did make it up, that's unacceptable, and if you did hear it not report it, that's unacceptable. So I mean, at that, if it goes to court, she's done.
Yeah.
So
this is a career ender on that one point right there. That's the sticking point. That's why we ask you very first thing: is this a veiled threat?
Right.
This is a career ender. Either way, you had knowledge of a specific threat, didn't act, or there you didn't have one and you implied the threat. Either way, you're done.
Mm-hmm. All right, next slide.
All right, question 2. What are Mary Lou's responsibilities under the law? Well, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said. However, I do want to add that as the school level admin, she is also totally responsible for upholding all policies and policies according to the district and the state. She is responsible for consulting the parents or guardians if there are any anomalies that come up that involves the students. The parents and the guardians should be the first to know. And she cannot render any form of punishment or consequences if it is not stated in the policy or the district's code of conduct and also without even consulting a parent or guardian to let them know what is going on. As far as informing the students, she's responsible for informing the students about the district's policy as well as the parents, as what it says to, as it pertains to PDA. If anything is punishable, PDA can be punishable, but only if it is outlined in the policies and or the district's code of conduct, which I'm sure that it is, but it has to under the process of due process. As it pertains to the students' rights, on page number 90 in the text, it says specifically that for the students' right, the policies under the area of student expression is difficult to develop and even more difficult to defend. So when thinking about what punishments or what actions we want to take as it pertains to the students' right, it is highly advisable that you contact your code of conduct, look at the policies and procedures. If the superintendent, if it is a situation where the superintendent needs to be informed or contacted, please do so accordingly. It also says in the text that assuming that the rules and regulations regarding students' expressions has been developed and are maintained as official policy by local boards of education, individual schools may build on these policies and regulations to set the standards. Under Title IX, these students have the same rights as any students to include protection against bullying and any form of harassment under the Title IX laws. As far as the personal views, the students' rights are protected through the Title IX, and which prohibits discriminations on the basis of sex to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and discrimination based on gender identity. And so in a nutshell, a student has rights to for expression, and it cannot be banned merely because it may conflict with an individual's personal view. And we say in this instance, Miss Mary Lou, or the principal of the school officials, as long as the actions of the same officials are not coercive or threatening, the students can be advised about such behaviors. But under the Tinker, Fraser, Hazelwood, and Morris guidelines, such actions by the school officials are prohibited.
Right.
And the next question states, how should Mary Lou respond to this concern of Jerry and Cindy Hudson? The first step that Mary Lou should have taken was to contact her superintendent office or maybe her legal department with them to try to get some consultation on how to handle this specific matter. She also, her primary duty is to actually just carry out the laws and the policy of the school. So this was kind of outside the realm of her main duty. Jerry and Sydney Hudson had the right to be upset and to express their opinion, but she should also state it to them that they do not have the right to kind of infringe on other students' rights as well. As far as the petition, they had all rights to do the petition, but Mary Lou should have stated that, you know, that she really need to get advice from her legal department or her district first and couldn't speak on the matter. One of the things that actually really kind of stuck out for me as a sore thumb was the name calling. She really should have stopped that immediately after the family started calling the other student's name and, you know, allowed them to show respect because they are still students. She also should have reminded Hudson that it is not permissible for her to discuss anything about the other students.
Okay, lastly was, should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom as a couple? Absolutely. The threat of the other students to boycott the prom is not a legal reason to cancel the prom based on the Tinker case. If the other students choose not to go, that's their decision, but it's not a valid reason for her to cancel the prom for everyone. With that though, she has the responsibility of keeping everyone safe because she is the administrator and this is still a school sanctioned event. So she should have a plan in place for any issues that may occur at the prom. That could be extra staffing inside and outside the prom. She may create a code or a signal like you would have at school, like a code 300 for a lockdown, that all staff working the prom would be made aware of, and know what they needed to do if that was called to prevent any issues that could happen. Because just because the students say they're going to boycott the prom doesn't mean that they're not going to show up and try to cause an issue. So she needs to be prepared for that just in case. But legally, she has to continue with the prom and allow Jimmy and Willie to attend. And then finally, the bullying and cyberbullying, and how could it be addressed or minimized? We kind of said the first thing is she should ensure that all students are reminded of the district policy, of the anti-bullying policy, and the consequences that are outlined in that policy that follows. So she could have a school-wide assembly to go over the policy. She could have teachers, like every first period teacher, every second period teacher, whatever period, read the policy and have students sign off on it that they saw it, and then send it home as a reminder for the students and the parents. And then we also said that she should ensure that all teachers know the proper protocols for due process if they are told about or they witness bullying. So kind of like we talked about with our other case, the teachers need to remember that they have to write up the incident and let administration know as soon as possible, because if it's not in writing and she doesn't know about it, she can't do anything about it. And then we also said increase monitoring of students in heavily populated areas of the school. So lunch and class transitions and anything where there's going to be a lot of students moving at one time. If you have every teacher just step outside their door, bullying is less likely to occur when classes are transitioning if there's a lot of adult staff witnessing. And then she should encourage students to notify an adult if they witness bullying or if they are being bullied. And then just like as a reminder with cyberbullying, until the administration or a teacher is notified or it impacts the learning environment, cyberbullying can't be addressed by the administration unless of course it's happening like via the school computer, school email, that sort of thing. And then kind of like you were talking about before, Dr. Lamb, if technology such as a cell phone is found, it needs to be taken by law enforcement or SRO to secure that chain of command.
Chain of command, and they have subpoena power that we don't have as school administrators. That is correct. That's an excellent point, Whitney. All right. Give yourself a hand. You did a great job tonight. All right. I can point out 10 specific cases of negligence in this case, 10 separate acts of negligence. Let me read them off to you. First one, allowed public display of affection. That was number one. That was nonfeasance, had duty to act and didn't. Violated FERPA by talking to the Hudsons about somebody else's child. Also, when the Hudsons made threats, didn't, as a responsible person, didn't inform law enforcement. That's number 3. Didn't inform the superintendent. Number 4. That's right there in 115C 288. Threatening parents and students used by that harm might come to them. Heckler's veto. Violated the First and 14th Amendments. Free speech, equal protection under the law. Did not adhere to the North and South Carolina law, anti-bullying law, that's state law. Violated Title IX, that's federal. Violated ESSA, which is the updated No Child Left Behind. It didn't replace it, it just updated it. And did not allow for due process as outlined in Tinker versus Des Moines in 1969, and did not let them form a club and assign a faculty member as you would any other extracurricular activity. 10 specific things. How far into that list would you get before you'd lose your job, do you think?
Maybe number 3.
Yep, there you go, Bill. Number 3, didn't inform the superintendent. Definitely number 4, when you threatened your parents. That's what I was talking about. You go to court and they say, did you have a credible threat? Yes. Did you punish them? Well, no. Out. Did you have a credible threat? Well, no, we didn't. Well, then you made the threat on your own. Out. But you're exactly right. Number 3, when you didn't inform the superintendent and this thing hit Channel 9 News, your hide wouldn't hold shucks. You lose your job at number 3, you'd lose your money, your house at number 4. That's the way it works. And after that, you just dig in the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. I told you the first night, my job can't keep you from getting sued. My job is just to win, baby. Keep you from losing your house. Number 4, you lose your house. And this number 3, you lose your job. Number 4, you lose your house. That's the way it goes. I told you, first case study, that was all about the teacher. That was all about the superintendent. This is all about the principal. Principal did everything you could do wrong here. Other than, I don't know, I wasn't there with her. Other than wetting her pants, she did everything else she could do wrong. And I wasn't with her. That could have happened too, for all I know. But you can count 10 specific incidences of negligence in this case. But again, remember, this is about the gay part is immaterial. Federally protected classes, you got to be careful. Not everybody will agree. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard, we don't want them kids in our school, fill in the blank in terms of what federally protected class they're in. We don't want them kids, or I don't want my kid in the room with that kid. And so in the end, your job, number one job, uphold law and policy. You know, you got to be apolitical, folks. Doesn't matter about what your tribe is, what your personal belief system is. They hired you to uphold law and policy. End of story. It's pretty clear. Just understand as we close out, if you are working with a federally protected class, you've got to go the extra mile, and you've got to know all these things. And as I tell you every week, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. That's what that call to the superintendent is for. That would be number 3. And Bill's exactly right. You don't call the superintendent and you go out on your own here, that's the end of it. All right. Anybody have anything else for the good of the group this week? I told you these would get shorter as y'all got better, and I'd quit arguing and throwing stuff. You did an excellent job tonight. You know, I just love y'all to death. Y'all are doing the best work. I love everything. Mary's just killing it on the evidences this summer. Dr. Mary, thank you for that. You are setting the curve. Mary's the star of the week on the evidence work. She's already finished the cap. I graded the last piece of it right before it came online. I enjoyed reading it, Mary. That was good stuff. I enjoy reading your work. I really do. All right. And again, we had some really good ones. Becca was our star of the week. We had a really good one on that one on DB6 this week, discussion board 6. Evidence work is good. Case studies, I'll read over these and tell you who the stars are on those. But all of you were stars tonight on your presentation. Loved them all. You all hit the right notes. All right. If there's nothing else, Sparkle had her hand raised. All right, Sparkle.
I just have one. I don't know if anybody else looked, but I seen your agenda for our townhouse meeting. Should we have received an email about graduation, applying for graduation? Because I seen that on the agenda.
Just got to go in and do it. Remember, the new registrar just got there, Thursday of last week. We hadn't had a registrar since the middle of December.
Okay.
And so I put that out myself, and I'm not supposed to. They get mad when that's my job. Well, do it, and I wouldn't have to.
Well, I appreciate you because I didn't know. So
yeah, that's what I mean.
Just let her know that email did
So I've been working with her. I don't know why it's me. I've been working with the registrar every day, trying to get her up to speed. I guess because I'm the biggest consumer of her of her services. I've been having to get her up to speed. But we do finally have a new registrar, and we've not had one since the middle of December. So just bear with us. We'll get you that, though, but you'll be fine. Thank you. But if you hadn't applied for graduation, go ahead and do that. That way you won't have to pay a late fee in the fall. If it rolls around to fall, I think it's about the week after the week of Labor Day. If you hadn't applied by then, they'll charge you $150 late fee. So everybody make sure you apply for graduation for the fall.
They charged me $150 already.
Do what?
They charged me when I did it last week. They said a charge of $150.
Well, they charge you for graduation, but then they charge you another $150 if you're late.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's $150 now. That covers everything. I don't. Now, when they say it covers everything, I don't really know what everything is, but they say that's the fee that process your applications, all your paperwork, your licensure paperwork, your transcripts, all that. They charge $150, but if you turn it in after Labor Day, they charge you another $150.
Dr. Land, for us that are in the state of South Carolina, like I have already passed my practice. I know that in North Carolina, they don't have to. So do I have to do anything in addition to?
You have to do the South Carolina verification form, and she's going to send that out Monday.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, she's going to send it out Monday. I've already got it queued up and ready for her. You've got a verification form. Now, be careful. Don't send the verification form in until you have your official transcript. I've negotiated with the registrar. She says she'll have them by the 6th of August. I wouldn't bet before the 10th, but you got to send it in. But South Carolina, you have a verification form. We'll send you one that's already filled out. You just got to put your personal information on it. Then you send it back to me, and then I designate whether you in South Carolina they split your, as you know, they split your licensure into elementary and secondary, and so we have to designate which of those. But yes, you will do that. You'll do that just as you graduate. But now y'all aren't finishing this summer, but I'll do the verification form. But you can't verify and license until you complete the program in December. But I'll get that out. We'll get that out. We'll get y'all your verification form. It'll come out later on.
In North Carolina, we don't have to take the praxis, correct?
Not the people. Not right now. Y'all have had a 2-year waiver. Y'all are still on waiver on praxis. Don't have to take. That's why you need to get done this fall. If you finished at least one semester of coursework, you won't have to take it. And y'all will have finished 2, so y'all won't have to take it. And you won't have to take this new administrative TPA like the college undergraduate teacher. We won't do that either. They're going to put one of those in, I think. Well, I don't think, I know. Well, I don't know. Elections have consequences. The person that was going to do that got primaried, so the state superintendent's out. And so I don't know with that election in November whether it'll follow through or not, quite honestly. But we've got it ready to go. Yeah, and so North Carolina people, y'all don't have to take praxis 5412. South Carolina people, you absolutely do. Make sure you take 5412. Now, South Carolina people, don't be the first one to fail it ever. Take it seriously. But after you finish this class, you should be able to pass it without any problem.
Good question.
Yes.
Those of us that have applied for graduation already and got back the message that we have not met because we have one more semester, do we need to do anything else?
No, you won't until you won't be met till you turn your portfolio in. But that's just an acknowledgement that you have applied and that they can't hit you with a late fee later on. I had them put that in, but then they said, well, they'll think that they're done. Well, just say if they hadn't met yet. But I want something in writing that says that they've applied and acknowledged. I don't want to have to fight this, this deal about, late fees. I have no standing in that. I don't, things that I can't control. Here's an idea. Send them a notification that they've applied. And so that I triggered that one a few years back when I had so many people. We were in an argument about every day about who had applied and who hadn't. Well, here's an idea. If it triggers an email, then we'll know if they did or not. Duh. So yeah, I'm always with the registrar. I had a very good relationship with the previous registrar. I'm hoping I will with this one. But you never know. We'll see how it goes, but we have the forms in place now, so we know, like you say, you got that back. That's your receipt that you've applied for graduation, that they can't charge you $150 late fee. So that's what that is. All right. Anything else? We got class next week, and then you'll have your final case study. Is that it? We don't have much left. Great day.
Somebody chatted, I'm sorry, I forget who, I lost the chat, but they were asking if you're gonna be working with us in the CAP next semester if we haven't finished it already.
I'll continue. You won't. I'll continue to be working with you until the day that fall starts, and then I'll turn you over to one of my folks then. But my shelves stay open. You keep on working. I work every day. That's what I said. You can just keep right on rolling right on through August. You can knock out this stuff. I'll grade every day. I'll feedback every day. I'll be your peer reviewer if that's what you need. And when we get to the CAP this fall, let's see who I'll give y'all to. I'll give y'all to somebody good that works with me to make sure that that there's no interruption in service. I always do. My folks tend to work just right on through. We don't take breaks. We're preparing to be school administrators. We don't take breaks. There is no such thing as work-life balance for school administrators. That's a Yeti. That's a Bigfoot. That's just a rumor, a hoax. There's no work-life balance for us. We just work. We get up and go.
So then when does fall start, Dr. Lamb?
I've got it right here.
And if
First
we
day of
finish this, and
classes
if we
will
finish the cap
be-
with you, will that transfer over to the next
Yeah.
class?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's why I said I'll make sure that I have a person. We grad classes start on the 28th of August. That's a Wednesday. And so if you meet Tuesday, you'll meet the day before. Either the 27th or 28th, whether you have a Tuesday or Wednesday class. But you'll have a Tuesday or Wednesday as you always do. I forget who I gave y'all to. I could look right quick. If I was paying attention here.
Sanders.
Sanders, yeah. Dr. Sanders got you. So y'all have my oldest daughter, Lisa. Dr. Barnes. Y'all have her. She is literally like my oldest daughter. Don't tell her I said oldest, tell her I said youngest daughter. She worked for me in CMS years ago. She was my doctoral student at Gardner Webb. She still has the most awarded dissertation in the history of the university. And so you'll have her. You'll love her. She's just, she's just visually the polar opposite of me. She's black female, I'm white male, but it's just, we're the same person. You'll notice right away. She says the same things he does. She's just like him. That's why I said she's just like my oldest daughter. So she will take care of you.
So why we can't have you, Dr. Lamb?
I don't teach 605. I teach law and policy and statistics. I teach law and policy in the doctoral programs, and I teach statistics in doctoral programs. That's my two areas of expertise. That 605 stuff's too touchy-feely. I can't do that. I'm not a school counselor. Y'all have already figured that out. Y'all would not want me for courses like that. Y'all need to learn from people that got better social skills than I've got, some of those micro political stuff. Remember, I do law and policy. It's black and white. It's straightforward. Now, your 605 is about learning the gray areas of micro political and how to be politically correct and all that kind of stuff. You develop your personal leadership abilities in those areas. Y'all have already figured out I have none in those areas. But I'm a law and policy guy. That's really simple. I stick with what I know. I have people who are much better at that, and you'll love them. Dr. Sanders will be good. You'll love Dr. Barnes. You'll love Lisa. She's
So
just
Wednesday night have
straightforward.
Dr. Barnes?
Pardon?
Wednesday night has Dr. Barnes, or who does Wednesday night have?
Dr. Barnes is always with Dr. Sanders, whichever night she has y'all on. But she's always with her.
Okay.
She's always with her. They are the dynamic duo. You need to see some people that look like you. You do. You need to, you need to see people that represent you. I mean, I know them commercials are corny. If you see her, you can be her and all that, but representation matters. You'll love the dynamic duo next semester. You'll get to see two minority women in action, and they can get after it. That's important in our business. All right. That's all I know, and some things I didn't. So I will see y'all next week. I appreciate you again. Y'all did a great job. Everybody have a good week.